There's no knight in shining armor that's coming to save the country. Our founders specifically built our country on the foundation of we the people taking ownership and responsibility for the kind of leadership that we want and the kind of future that I may disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
President-elect Trump has nominated former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard.
Spoken with her at length, as in the case of Kennedy, on my podcast.
The President-elect Donald Trump saying, I am pleased to announce that former Congresswoman Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard will serve as the Director of National Intelligence.
We had a great conversation and talked a little bit about the work that needs to be done. And I was grateful and honored to accept President Trump's offer to serve our country and support his objective to defend the safety, security, and freedom of the American people as the Director of National Intelligence.
What is Lieutenant Colonel Gabbard like on the personality side? Moderately extroverted, higher in assertiveness than enthusiasm. She is no giggling girl. Perhaps her military experience mitigated against taking that sometimes charming but often too easy route.
It's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama.
The Democrat Party has no home for people like us. But we do have a home in the Republican Party where we are welcomed with open arms by President Trump and so many of you who love our country.
It is a privilege to be here with all of you, my brothers and sisters in uniform, especially on this day.
When we had our first memorial service in Iraq back in 2005, some of my fellow soldiers who are part of the brigade are here and can appreciate that experience.
Markedly low in neuroticism, as befits a woman who pursued a true military career. Agreeableness? Ms. Gabbard cares genuinely about those she served and continues to serve, although I would say she does so in the temperamentally conservative manner that is part patriotism and part respect for the intrinsic dignity and worth of every person, rather than in the oft cloying, false, and morally self-righteous manner that so often characterizes the so-called allies of the oppressed.
If we're in a situation, and there are jobs, both in the military, as you mentioned, first responders and others, if those standards are set on a realistic assessment of what this job will require, and it turns out that, hey, 1 out of 100 women who apply actually qualifies, then so be it. If we have people who get these jobs who cannot do the job, then it's pointless, and it puts themselves and it puts the entire unit and mission at risk.
Tulsi Gabbard's story is not one of privilege or inheritance, but of relentless struggle, discipline, and the unyielding will of a soldier. Born with nothing, she forged herself in the mud and fire of Iraq, serving her country with honor and rising through the ranks with a conviction rare in modern politics. A patriot loved by many, feared by many more, called a Russian asset, and placed on a TSA watch list for reasons still murky. She embodies both controversy and credibility.
On the side of the progressive left, she's also very smart, without the more showy brilliance of Ramaswamy, who we still have to discuss, down to earth in that intelligence, and is as conscientious as you would hope an ex-military member and influential political leader might be. Gabbard is the sort of woman who would make of someone a favorite aunt, a close confidant, a trusted friend. If you wanted sane advice, she'd be your pick. She doesn't have the stunning entrepreneurial flair of Musk, Kennedy, or Ramaswamy, but her presence on the X-Men team would add to that excess of plasticity some true stability, the other personality meta trait. This is particularly important when the team in question will be tasked with so much administrative and managerial responsibility. But I'd bet on Gabbard to implement effectively and to pay attention to all the details, although Musk also excels at that, to walk the walk as well as talk the talk.
This is a clear act of political retaliation. There's no other way to put it. You laid out the sequence of events the very next day after my conversation with you on the air, warning the American people about how dangerous a Kamala Harris presidency would be. I was placed on this domestic terror watch list, which is called the Quiet Skies list under the Department of Homeland Security.
The things that she's done inside Syria and the things that she said about Bashar al-Assad and Syria are deeply, deeply troubling.
This is not a place for a Russian, Iranian, Syrian, Chinese sympathizer. DNI has to analyze real threats. Are we comfortable with someone like that?
That anybody that has a different political view now is being cast as a Russian asset. It's totally ridiculous. Tulsi Gabbard has served in our military. She served as a congresswoman from Hawaii, as a Democrat, I might add.
Are we comfortable with someone like that at the top of our national intelligence agencies?
She cares deeply about our Constitution and civil liberties and making sure people aren't being targeted by these intelligence agencies. So again, I think this is a reformer who can come in, who maybe is not part of the same Washington cocktail party circuit that people in the intel community are used to, but maybe that's exactly what we need right now. President Trump listened to the American people when they screamed about these issues. They want to be heard. They feel like Washington's broken, and I think bringing somebody in like Tulsi Gabbard is a welcome news.
This is something that I realized very quickly during my first deployment to Iraq, where I was seeing firsthand the cost of war, serving in that medical unit every single day. I wondered how many politicians in Washington who voted for or advocated for or championed that war in Iraq were laying awake at night, thinking about my brothers and sisters who were getting killed in combat, who were getting severely wounded, who were getting blown up by IEDs. And I learned very quickly that they were not.
Tulsi's journey into public service began at 21, when she became the youngest legislator in Hawaii's history. But it was on the battlefields of Iraq where her character was truly tested. Serving as a medical unit officer, she witnessed firsthand the cost of war, not in statistics, but in the broken bodies and lost lives of her fellow soldiers. It was this experience that shaped her fierce opposition to interventionist wars. She stood against the endless military entanglements championed by both Democratic and Republican elites. Her willingness to challenge the establishment earned her both admiration and scorn. Some saw her as a necessary voice of reason. Others branded her as unpatriotic.
She's a very difficult person not to admire, not to feel lesser than in her presence. She's solid, competent, straightforward, admirable, brave, patriotic, and tough. She'd be a truly thoughtful presence in the Trump X-Men team, which might otherwise tilt too hard toward the entrepreneurial and revolutionary. Slow down, gentlemen. Take some time and think.
We paid our respects to the empty boots, the empty helmet and the rifle, representing one of our friends.
We can't allow our country to be destroyed by politicians who will put their own power ahead of the interests of the American people.
Really gave me hope in seeing the results of this election as the American people, the vast majority of the American people, didn't fall for the lies and the propaganda that they were pushing out, and they saw through them. They saw that
she has as well the emotional resilience not to panic, even under pressure, not to claim that the sky is falling and rush around madly and counterproductively merely for the show of work. It doesn't hurt as well that she is the epitome of feminine grace and attractiveness. Wonder Woman indeed, borrowing, if we can, from the DC world, the comic books, and not the city.
Let's think about how we can be of service in our own lives and make that positive impact on others. And understand that despite all of our external differences, whether those differences be our politics or race or religion or all of the things that are so easily used to divide us in today's place and time, to remember that we're all God's children. We can find true happiness and true purpose in our lives by living our life in that spirit of selfless service.
I could certainly envision her as the first truly deserving female president of the United States.
She is assertive, but not reckless, disciplined, but not inflexible. But can an outsider like her, one who has repeatedly clashed with Washington's elite, truly lead the intelligence apparatus of the United States? Tulsi Gabbard is many things: a soldier, a patriot, a reformer, and, depending on who you ask, a potential threat. She represents a new breed of leader, one unshackled from party loyalty, but bound to personal conviction. Whether this makes her a savior of American intelligence or its greatest gamble remains to be seen. In a world where politicians play it safe, Gabbard has chosen the hard road. She walks it alone, not as a knight in shining armor, but as a soldier hardened by battle, ready to serve, no matter the cost.